Good evening, everyone. Welcome to CodeChef College Chapter's National Fiesta. My name is Shweta Sharma and I lead the outreach and partnerships at CodeChef. It's day one and I'm super excited to have you all here. Really excited about all the amazing interactions we're going to have in the next hour. As you all are aware, today's theme is how to ace top competitive programming competitions. And for today's call, we have a very special guest from Poland. He is a very famous competitive programmer. He's a legendary grandmaster on Codeforces. He is a finalist of multiple big programming competitions like ICPC, Facebook Hacker Cup, and Google Code Jam. He's a well known YouTuber and a 7-star programmer on CodeChef. He's none other than our very own Kamil Debowski, popularly known as Ericto. Welcome to
Hi.
the call, Ericto.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here with us. Over to you.
And it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks. You likely know me as Richter. And for now, like 10 years, maybe I do competitive programming. But maybe for past 5 years or so, maybe 6 or 7, I do international contests as well. Nobody can just start and in the first year do some international contests. Maybe not nobody, that's not really true. I know cases of people who are very good at math or physics and then in less than a year after learning first programming language, they are in IOI finals, but that's just very, very rare. The plan for today is for me to talk a little bit first about myself and competitive programming in general, like common platforms you should use, and then we'll move to Q&A. I will take questions that you already asked in advance and also some from this stream, from the chat. So hello, everybody. Yep. I first did math. When I was in primary school, I did a lot of math, and then when around high school, the beginning of high school, I started doing programming. It was very easy for me to switch from math to programming, and I could very quickly learn new stuff because all the analytical knowledge, the math knowledge was already there, and it allowed me to be able to fight for top places in some national competitions within a few years, which isn't that easy. It's more common that people study for several years and then they fight in some regionals. But I had a head start in form of maybe 10 years of learning math already and competing in those contests. And in past years, I do regular rounds like Codeforces, CodeChef, AdCoder, stuff like that. Sometimes I create them. I'm author of those problems. And I try to get to finals of big competitions like Google Code Jam, Facebook Hacker Cup, Top Coder Open. I don't always succeed at that, obviously. Almost nobody can be always in top 25 or whatever is the requirement to advance. But in recent years, I managed to get to Google Code Jam a few times to the finals, Facebook Hacker Cup. Top Coder Open is harder because only 16, right? Or 16 people get to the finals. That I did only once. And recently I teach algorithms and competitive programming on YouTube. You can follow me basically everywhere at Ericto with CHTO at the end. I will now show you my screen and we'll go through common platforms. The 3 platforms I currently recommend are Codeforces, CodeChef, and AdCoder. I would say in this order for beginners. Codeforces has the biggest community. So I guess that already 95% of you are aware of Codeforces. It has very common contests, like once every few days. Let's see, actually now only one more contest is planned this week. But I would say it's 2 or 3 contests a week. And there are from time to time new things posted there, like new algorithms described, stuff like that. Recent actions field, this one on the right, is very important. If you want to start with competitive programming, just visit that page from time to time and read recent posts to see what's up. Then there's CodeChef, and the 3 most important contests there are the long challenge, 10-day challenge, and cook-off and lunchtime. I think that now all three of them have Division 2 versions. Division 2 is the easier one. And in particular, there is the very specific thing about CodeChef is the 10-day contest. I remember that when I started, heavily practicing for competitive programming, I tried to do a lot of long contests. It's unique because you have more time to think about a problem. Even if you don't know something, you have like 1-2 days to think about the problem. When I would be in commute to university, I would think about the problem. You don't have that in short 2-hour contests. And then there's also AdCoder. AdCoder has the best difficult problems out there currently. AdCoder Grand Contests are amazing. They won't be interesting for you if you are a beginner, because really, this is a hard contest. But they have beginner, regular, and grand contests. You can see them there. And there are a lot of other platforms. Those 3 are currently biggest, I think. But there's a list. There's a website that gives you a list of all those contests. It's contest list with address clist.by. And there you can see just everything. What is now coming. There is TopCoder SRM starting in 20 minutes. There is HackerEarth Easy, December Easy. There is Advent of Code Day 5, AdCoder Regular. There are also some CTF contests, but that's some different category. It's not algorithms. It's more about kind of hacking, I guess. Facebook Hacker Cup is also this weekend, and it's not really about hacking, even though the name suggests so. So if you aren't sure about contests and platforms, remember this website, clist.by. It's very, very useful. And one less frequent contest is Google Kickstart. It's quite big because, well, everybody wants to get to Google, right? And Google, several times a year, they organize a contest, Google Kickstart, and once a year they organize Google CodeJam. It's bigger version, bigger brother of Google Kickstart, and there's schedule. But you will also see those Google Kickstart contests, in this contest list thing. Those are the main websites, and there are a lot more. When I started, I didn't really know about them because I didn't speak English well enough to participate in those. I started from Polish Olympiad, from some Polish competition. I think that the first international thing I tried is Codeforces and TopCoder, but I'm not sure about that. But then during the next years, for some time, I was creating problems for all the platforms, Codeforces, TopCoder, then also CodeChef and HackerEarth, maybe some more, HackerRank. Now HackerRank doesn't really conduct regular contests. Maybe HackerRank is focusing on coding interviews. I'm not sure about that. I also was admin of CodeChef for half a year. I organized CodeChef Snackdown. So, if you are really good and you spend a lot of time, there are also some opportunities to do something and to be hired, but it's an extra job, creating a problem when you have an idea for it, or just being an admin, a tester, coordinator. All right. Let's start with some Q&A. We have questions that you asked before, and then we'll also grab some from the chat. I'm looking also at the chat right now, but it's very chaotic and it's hard to keep up with all the messages. At times, I can find solution to problem that I take longer to implement, losing valuable contest time. What should I do about it? That's our first question for today. In competitive programming, there are 2 parts of solving a problem. You need to come up with a solution, and then you need to implement it. If you struggle with one more than the other, it means that you should practice more that part. And main thing I would say here is don't skip implementing a problem. If you like puzzles and thinking, then most likely you prefer the coming up with solution part. So my advice here is you need to implement anyway. When you solve problems, when just a friend told you an interesting problem from some Olympiad, let's say, then not only come up with a solution, but also implement it. If you really are a beginner with your programming language, maybe just you need to learn the language more. Find any course on, for example, C++. There are plenty of free courses out there in the internet. I learned from some Polish website, and again, it was for free. You can also grab a book. That's fine. So, knowing the language very well is basics that you need to know. If you really are fluent in that, then implementing your thoughts down should be easy. But in competitive programming, remember, also implement a solution, don't just come up with it. And that's true for app solving as well. We can move to the next question. We have around 10 of these. Cyan asks, as a beginner, how much time should I spend on problems I can't solve before moving on to seeking help? And seeking help usually should mean reading the editorial. In all those regular rounds, there is an editorial. So if you cannot solve a problem, read the editorial or the tutorial. Sometimes there are video solutions as well. Too many people, they just keep asking high-rated, they send messages to high-rated participants with questions how to solve a problem, where there is explanation. Author of problem usually writes that down. So we cannot keep up with thousands of messages. Okay, that rant aside, you should work on a problem as long as you have new ideas, and let's say 20 minutes more. And sometimes it will mean that you will spend 5 hours on a problem, though usually that means you're wasting time and you're not moving in the correct direction, especially if it's an easy problem. But if you're out of ideas immediately, let's say you've read the statement, you understand it, you analyze example, you think about possible data structures and algorithms to use, you have no idea, it's just crazy problem, don't spend 2 hours on it because it will give you nothing. After, let's say, 20 minutes of being stuck, being out of ideas, then read the editorial. And this 20 minutes is, a kind of heuristic measure of time. Some people will say 1 hour. Some people will say keep working on a problem until you get it. Competitive programming isn't a very old sport or science where everybody knows how to train. It's still quite young. Chess is around for what, 100 years, a few hundred years? Competitive programming is very new, relatively new, 20 years, and the online rounds are big for maybe past 5 or 10 years. So let's say that my advice is 20 minutes of being stuck, but that doesn't mean 20 minutes from opening the problem. Those are two completely separate things. What else do we have? The rating being constant for some time. You will see those blogs and posts popping up from time to time where somebody complains that for, let's say, half a year, their rating is quite constant. It doesn't change up or down for a long time, or it went down for a moment. We can see my screen for a moment. Let's switch to that. In CodeChef, I had a few years of not participating, but you can also see my rating from a few years ago, then a big gap, and now my rating recently when I participate. But in Codeforces, it's more constant because I wasn't admin of Codeforces. Can we see my screen for a moment? I had quite constant rating for 4 years, or maybe 3 years. What about that? From this, let's say this moment when I got lucky with some few contests, this was 2016, the end of 2016 or the beginning of 2017. Then for around 3 years, I had rating of, let's say, 2800 in Codeforces for 3 years. Does it mean that I didn't practice or that my level was, the same? No, it's just that rating takes a long time. It takes a long time to get better. It takes even longer time for rating to show that. Don't expect to learn something and then after a month move your rating. Don't expect your rating to move up. If your rating moved up by even, 200 once every 3 months, let's do the math. After 1 year, you're plus 800. After let's say 5 years of participating, you would be plus 4,000. Do you think that's reasonable? If you practice, your rating will go up, maybe like 200 a year. Maybe you will be on the same level for 3 years. If you are worried about your rating, then just think about this. If you can solve problems that you weren't able to solve a month ago, if you know some new techniques, anything like that, then you got better. Rating is a heuristic, and that's true for any website. Rating shouldn't be something that is so important to you that you think that you're doing things wrong if it doesn't change after 3 months. Come on, you need to practice for several years if you really want to get better. Sorry about that. And now we can move to next question. Again, I'm ranting a little bit, but just people think about some things wrong. Rating is something that takes a lot of time. My approach to study a new topic from scratch. If you watch my streams, then you already know how that looks like. In particular, what did I learn recently? Burnside's lemma and inclusion-exclusion. Those are 2 topics that I learned in past few months during streams. And what I do is what any person should, which is go to google.com, type your topic, or for example, Burnside's lemma, or this space tutorial. There will be several results. Just, I don't know, open first two of them, and choose whichever seems better written, or maybe it has drawings, it has better explanation. If something seems badly written, just switch to another one. That's it. So this was really answer to question how to find something in the internet. Then I would read such a lecture. I would really try to understand it. If you prefer video content, then sure, you can try to find it on YouTube. Of course, it's also fine to have a book with algorithms, and then to learn every next thing. I'm answering now a question about learning a particular topic that you want to learn. Then you need to find it. After you understand it, you need to solve a few problems. Don't solve 50 problems on the same topic, because that also you're spoiling the fact that you need to use this thing. In competitive programming, you aren't told what the problem is about. You need to figure this out. If you learn, let's say, segment tree, and then you try to solve every problem in the internet about segment trees, you have it easier because you know that you need to use segment trees. No, solve a few problems, whatever is maybe recommended in that lecture or tutorial, and then switch back to solving random problems. And I think we will get back to this topic later in some other question. You can watch my streams, and you will also from time to time see me learning something new. Is there a way to practice other than to just blindly solve questions? How do I remember the concept I learned from it? Those are 2 separate questions. The first one. Solving problems randomly is perfectly fine. It's better than just solving all the problems in one category. If you want to learn something new, then sure, solve a few problems to make sure that you understand this new topic, but then switch back to solving problems in random order, not knowing what they require. You should choose problems on proper difficulty. If something is too easy or too hard for you, that's bad. If you never can solve it, or you cannot even understand the editorial, that's bad, that's too hard. If you usually come up with an idea after a few minutes and it isn't hard for you, that's too easy problem. Regarding the second one, how do I remember the concept I learned from it? You need to understand it. If you need to ask yourself, do I remember that concept? That's bad. You need to understand something. If I explain to you, some rules about in math, multiplication and brackets, I will explain to you that a multiplied by, and in brackets b plus c, and then it is ab plus a times c. Something like that. Yes, you can memorize it, but then you will never be efficient in using that fact. You need to understand it. So spend maybe a few more minutes while learning a topic and think, okay, what does it mean? Something like that. I never asked myself a question, do I remember something? That's not true. There are some topics that I understand not that well, of course. I don't know everything there is in algorithms. But I excel only in problems where I understand some concept. Let's move to the next question. I see in the chat some questions about CSCS problem set, and yeah, there are a lot of problem sets out there in the internet. And I also see some questions about particular topic like dynamic programming. For each of them, it's the same. Dynamic programming or segment tree or whatever, it's all the same. Just Google it and read the tutorial. Share my method of absolving. Again, you could see that in my streams. I right now only absolve AdCoder grant contest problems. I don't even care about doing like Codeforces or CodeChef old problems. After a round in CodeChef or Codeforces, I read editorial for some problem. If I didn't solve it, and I tried to do it during the contest. If I really cared about my practice, then I would do it. A few years ago, I would try to absolve everything if I had time, and then I would learn more. But right now, I only absolve AdCoder grant contest, and for me, it is just take any problem that I didn't solve yet, try to solve it. If I'm stuck for a long time, check the beginning of editorial. Don't read the whole editorial. I already know enough that if somebody gives me a hint, then usually I can move on. I can move forward using that hint. So I would only read the first line, the first sentence from the editorial. Maybe that's something special about my absolving. So if you're a beginner, you can use the same thing. If participating in a contest, have a goal of absolving at least one extra problem or two problems, those that you couldn't do during a contest. So sit down for some more time, try to do it. If you cannot, read some part of the editorial, and once you see there's something new, something you didn't think about during a contest, then stop reading the editorial and investigate this idea. How can I assure that my code doesn't exceed time limit given in the statement? You need to understand the complexity. 99% of time when I'm solving a problem, I know what is the time complexity and space complexity as well, if that's important. Maybe the exception is backtracking and some other rare problems where complexity is just hard to calculate. But if it's anything like n square, n, and log n, 2 to nth power, like for bit masks, for subsets of a set, everything like that, it's just obvious to me what the complexity is, so I know what roughly should be the running time. A computer can do around 100 million operations, or several hundred million simple operations. So if I have n squared, and n is up to 5,000, 5,000 squared, I think I turned off my microphone. 5,000 square is 25 million, so should be good enough. That's really it. This question, you wouldn't ask this question if you knew what time complexity is and if you understood how to calculate it. Also, you need to use English in the chat if you want me to understand you. How to stay motivated. This is something from psychology, maybe, more than really about algorithms. And I'm not an expert here. I don't know any neuroscience, neurobiology. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know any techniques, special techniques for motivation or focusing. I can do competitive programming for many hours a day because I like it, because I enjoy it. When you play video games, you don't ask yourself a question, how can I stay motivated or stay focused for the whole day to play it? If you like it, you will just do it. It's similar for me. If you really want to do competitive programming, then apparently you have some goal. Maybe it's because you like it. Maybe you just want to train your brain, just like some people go to the gym to have a better body. You can also practice your brain, your mind. And then that's a perfectly fine reason. So that should motivate you. If you want to get a job, then sure, that's a fine motivation as well. Though then it's better to focus on problems from coding interviews. Competitive programming problems aren't the best, aren't most effective for you to learn for coding interviews. Yes, it's still very good, but it's like, let's say you train for you want to get to military or police, and you want to pass some test of how many push-ups you will do and how fast you can run, stuff like that. And to train for that, you play basketball in your free time. Yes, playing basketball will make you fit, and that will help a lot. But if you really want to focus just on this one thing, passing a test where you need to do push-ups and run, then you should practice that. It's the same for coding interviews. That being said, both competitive programming and coding interviews, they require algorithms. But there is different frequency of algorithms being used in the two. For example, two pointers or sliding window, common in interviews, quite rare in competitive programming. On the other hand, a segment tree is very common in competitive programming, and it almost never appears in interviews. There are differences. And to answer a question, how to stay motivated and keep going while doing competitive programming, my answer is, well, ask yourself why you're doing competitive programming. That's your motivation. And for me, it's kind of my job now, but also I like it. What are the mistakes? What are the mistakes you don't want me to make while starting my journey in competitive programming? There can be many mistakes, and I will just say about one or maybe two of them. One mistake for beginners is that they focus too much on their template and their typing speed, just stuff very programmingly related. Competitive programming is more about thinking and understanding algorithms. If you understand algorithms, you can modify them as well. You can come up with your own new algorithms, which usually are just modifications of the existing ones. Problems like ad hoc, that's category of problems. Ad hoc problems that usually don't require knowing something specific. This is maybe what you should start with in algorithms, to just train your mind. It's not that knowledge of algorithms is that important, and same for programming. Don't create a complicated template with define PB pushback, stuff like that. That's not very important. So that's one thing. And maybe the other one is don't cheat. I don't know why so many people do it, but if you try to get solutions from others during a contest, then just stop. That's not how you do competitive programming. And one more mistake, C++ related. When you divide, it rounds up instead of down for negative values. You're welcome. My strategy while doing competitive programming in school and college. I think this question is about time management. When you have some other responsibilities, how do you do something extra? And it's a legit question. And for example, when you have already a job and family, and you need to spend time on that and with them, then you will not have a lot of time for your hobby. And there is nothing much you can do about it. You can Google time management tricks, anything like that. But regarding competitive programming in school, you can, maybe in high school, during boring lessons like biology, you can maybe think about a problem. I used to do that. Your grades will suffer, but if you prefer to study programming rather than have good grades, sure, do that. Just don't tell anybody that I told you to do so. And when you are in commute to school, to college, you can also think about a problem. You can have a pen and paper and try to solve something. You don't need a computer near you to solve a problem. A lot of things it's just about sitting with pen and paper. This is how you will learn to solve difficult problems as well, because difficult problems are not about staring at your monitor. You don't need your monitor. Just if you read a problem in the morning, you can during a day think about it. That's very useful and common for people in the top, I would guess. I think we're getting to the end of those pre-chosen questions. Then we'll focus more on the chat. What kind of mathematical background is needed to become Grandmaster? Or I guess 7-star in CodeChef will be the equivalent version. Well, it's hard to say, it's hard to be specific here. There is no list of topics that you need to know. You don't need to know integrals, but it's good to know a quadratic equation and to find two solutions of quadratic equation. It's good to know words like function or polynomial. What else is there? Yeah, like simple algebra is important. Counting, probability, stuff like that. Going through the high school and just passing math barely is not enough to become a grandmaster. But I knew a person who was very bad at math, and in high school he almost failed math. He almost didn't pass the grade, and yet he got to national stage of Polish Olympiad in informatics because he knew programming and algorithms well enough. But that's below the level of Grandmaster in Codeforces. Now, Grandmaster in Codeforces isn't something that everybody can get. So I'm not sure if you should focus on that. If you want to get to Division 1 in any platform, that's a reasonable goal for many people. Then you need to know basic math. If you don't know some counting principles or something like A multiplied by, in brackets, B plus C, that's bad. Then you need to maybe grab, again, a math book from high school and go through some things and understand them. For me, math helped a lot. And I was on the level of being in national stage of math Olympiad, participating in national contest in math. I was very good in math, and that helped me. And yet I needed many years from the moment I started programming to the moment I became Grandmaster in Codeforces. This is a long-term goal, like 5 years, 10 years, something like that. It's not that you need some math to learn programming and become a Grandmaster in 1 year, because that's virtually impossible. The last question from before the stream. How long did I practice to become global champion in CodeGem? I think the answer here is infinity, or maybe -1, impossible, because I didn't become the champion in Google CodeGem. I was second with very big gap of score to the first place. Gennady won that Google CodeGem, and I wasn't close. If I solved one more problem, I would still be second. It took me 8 years, around that. Plus, before, maybe 10 years of doing math. And really, during my childhood, I did a lot of math. So you can say maybe 18 years. I don't know, if you are starting now, maybe 18 years from now, you will be on the level of finals of Google CodeGem 2. I know that it's not motivating, but it's like asking a sport, how do you say that, a sportman, how much time did you spend to get to this level? And they started when they were 5 or 10. They started playing a lot of football. But now they are 25 and they are one of the best in the world. Well, it takes a lot of time to become one of the best in the world. All right, now hello chat, and we'll pick some questions from YouTube chat, I think. This will be in total for maybe 1 hour long, the whole stream. We still have some more time. If you, not only you can ask questions, but also some suggestions just about what you want me to talk about. How to approach a question and what is the thinking process? You read the statement and you think about a possible solution. How do you solve a math problem in school? if they say, I don't know, when Johnny was 5 years old, he was 6 times younger than his mother, and blah blah blah. There is something, you made equations out of it and you solve it. That's most of the time it's similar to some previous problem, so that's one of the techniques. But how to approach a question is, very hard and vague. Like, how do you speak? How do you use language or your tongue? You do it by practicing, and then you will know how to do it. It's hard to describe. And what is the thinking process? You can visit my streams, and there are a lot of screencasts and various commentary on YouTube. You can there see and hear what is the thinking process for people in the top. But it's the same as your thinking process for an easy problem. It just uses harder concepts. That's the only difference. How much should we try hard before going for editorial? My advice stays the same. That's try, and then after you're stuck and you're out of ideas, move to the editorial. So try hard. I don't think this is like you focus all your mind on really trying hard, like pulling up some big weight. It's not like that. You just think. If you're out of ideas, then yeah, you need to look up the editorial. How to start with dynamic programming, as it's really difficult to learn in the beginning. Dynamic programming is maybe the biggest, so many people are afraid of dynamic programming, and they just are not able to start with it. It's so scary, maybe because it's harder to grasp concept. I don't share this opinion, because I was good in math, so then it was very easy for me to learn dynamic programming, and I immediately learned the iterative version. When I learned dynamic programming, I didn't know what a recursion is. But for me, it was obvious that when you compute Fibonacci numbers, well, when you have an array of values, you can use 2 last values to compute the next one. And that's some easy instance of dynamic programming. And so right now, if you know some competitive programming and you want to learn dynamic programming, you need to go through some tutorials or some lectures about it. And that's the same answer as for every other topic. There are a lot of problem sets about DP, like the one in CSES.fi. Also, there is at Coder educational contest, and in many other platforms, you will find just a collection of dynamic programming problems or dynamic programming educational problems. So you can try that. And yeah, it's good to understand arrays. And I would recommend you to focus on iterative version, because in the long run, it's easier. I wouldn't be able to solve some problem with recursive DP, and yet I'm able to do it iteratively. But I understand that programmers understand recursion better, and they usually start with recursive DP. All right, next question. Do you recommend on reading books like Competitive Programmer's Handbook or Solve Challenges more? Solving problems is enough. You would be fine by just solving problems and never seeing a book. But I read books. I've read some books when I was learning programming, and in particular, Competitive Programmer's Handbook. It's a free PDF online. You can just Google it. It's very good for beginners. It will describe to you what is input-output in competitive programming, some common maybe platforms and contests. It will teach you some first easy algorithms like binary search or prefix sums, and then move to harder ones. It's a good collection of algorithms, and the first maybe 20 or 50 page, they are like an introduction to the world of competitive programming. That's very nice if you don't have in your school friends who do a lot of competitive programming. where they could introduce you to this world. They could explain to you some things about different websites, what you should do, how you should behave. So that's a nice introduction. And then there's that collection of algorithms. But in the long run, it's a good enough strategy to keep solving random problems. And when you encounter a new topic, then learn it. So a lot of times in the internet, you will see the advice of just solving problems, and it is fine, as long as when you encounter something new, go learn it. I already told you that during this stream. Google this topic name, read the tutorial, or watch a lecture, then solve a few problems. Books for ICPC preparation. Nothing. I don't recommend any books for ICPC preparation. Same for IOI or anything like that. You need to solve ICPC problems with your team. I think there are some books like that. Actually, I will very quick Google that ICPC book. You won't see that, but I'm just curious. Is there anything dedicated to specific for ICPC? Apparently not. So that's an easy answer. No books. But you need to mainly solve team contests. And if you use Google, you will find a lot of advice from top teams, what you should do, how you should split the work, the fact that one person shouldn't spend a few hours in front of computer. Instead, if they are stuck, they should, when possible, print their code and try to debug on paper. There is that set of advice, and you will find it online, I'm sure. I don't know where exactly. It's not that I keep track of that, but use Google here. All right. Next question, please. New to programming, how can I build my basics to participate in a coding competition? You don't prepare to participate in competition. You can just take part in a competition. Like first, solve a single problem in the platform to learn how to submit. Try to get the first accepted, then you can participate in a competition. In any platform, you can open any easy problem and try to solve it. If you cannot, open the editorial. Competitive Programmer's Handbook is good for beginners, and it will give you some introduction, as I already said, and that's really it. It's not that you need to study something specific to take part in a contest. So that's easy. Feel free to join this world, this hobby of competitive programming. What inspired you to take an interest in competitive programming? When did you know you were good at it? Even before high school, I learned some programming like HTML and Pascal. I spent maybe in total 20 hours on it. I didn't do any competitions. I didn't know what competitive programming is. In first year of high school, an older colleague told me, hey, Kamil, you're good at math, try National Olympiad in Informatics, like Polish Olympiad in Informatics. So I did. Maybe then already I did some contest online, Polish contest, I'm not sure, I don't remember that well. But I already then knew what binary search is, for example. I think so. Binary search is something very easy to understand for somebody who is good at math. But it's around that time. When did I know I'm good at it? If you're good at math, you can quickly learn other things, including physics or just anything math related. I wouldn't be better than an average person in learning a language or in learning biology or history. Maybe even I'm worse than an average person in learning history. I'm not sure. I don't have a good memory. But in programming, I could quickly learn. I understood stuff. If something is written, explained, in binary search, you do this. You ask about middle element, then you go to left half or right half. Yeah, sure, I understand it. And I could apply that to other problems, even if it's not trivial binary search. So maybe I didn't think that I'm good at it. After participating in math competitions and winning some of them, when I did programming, I didn't feel good at it without winning competitions. My goal was to win something. But in high school, yeah, I felt that I can learn quite quickly. And after, let's say, a year of doing competitive programming, I saw that I can grow, I can learn, and I can fight for those top places in the future. Next question, please. Do we have to master data structures and algorithms before starting competitive programming? No, we don't. You don't have to do that. You can participate if you just know a programming language, and you know what is input-output. The problem will tell you what need to do. If you want to be good at it, then sure. It's like asking, let's say, a small child, let's say 3 years old, they ask you, do I need to know how to run before I play football? If you can walk and if you can move your legs, then you can play football. You won't be very good at it. Everybody who already knows how to run, they will beat you, but you can try. And it's not that somebody will make fun of you. Everybody who is young or just start something, they will be weak at it. Actually, it's very inspiring to see some people in the top. If you look at their graphs, their rating graphs, they started from being very low. Like several contests, they went down. Some 1 star / in Codeforces newbie rating. And then the fact that they learned and they become better, that's actually inspiring. That's not bad. No, you don't need the knowledge of DS and algo before starting. But the process of practicing CP problems will actually make you better at data structures and algorithms because you will learn them as you go. If you're more of a type who would read a lot of books, then sure, you can first learn some. My approach for intermediate problems, for intermediate coders, should we always think of optimal solution? It doesn't matter at all if you have an optimal solution. Your solution needs to be fast enough. If the problem says n is up to 5,000, then O of n square complexity will be 5. Maybe, let's say n up to 1,000, then for sure n square is 5. Then it doesn't matter if there exists a solution O of n. But maybe the question actually didn't mean that when asking this question. Maybe should we always think about solution that is good enough for those constraints given in the statement? I mean, this is what you need to code. If you don't immediately have an idea for a correct solution, for a solution that is correct and fast enough, then sure, you can start with a brute force. Just don't implement it, because what's the point? Start with a brute force, with something slow, and with pen and paper, and then try to improve it in your head, on paper. Or maybe just I misunderstood the question, hard to say. Actually, optimal means the best possible, and that doesn't matter. You just need to be good enough. It's rare that logic of solution shown in the editorial is same as mine. How much time should I invest in debugging? I wonder if those are two separate questions or one common one. It's rare that logic of solution shown in editorial is same with mine. Then my only advice is try to understand logic from the editorial. Assuming that you got accepted with your method, then if you see that there is an alternative method, because you see that in codes of other people or in the editorial, then try to understand it, and that's enough. If it's because your idea was wrong, well, then spend more time during a contest, spend more time to think about the correctness of your solution. If you keep getting wrong ideas and you're trying to implement it, apparently you don't think enough about your solution. You're just you're having some idea and you're trying to implement it. Don't do random things. You need to understand what you're doing. You can slow down. You can maybe have a rule that 5 minutes before implementing, after you come up with a solution, for 5 minutes instead of implementing, think whether it's correct. Analyze what it will do for a sample test or for your own handwritten test. How much time should I invest in debugging? Usually until you're done. It's not really that simple, but well, if you want to make some code work and it doesn't work, then you need to sit down and debug until it works. Though, you can stop debugging the moment when you realize that the logic is wrong. When you realize, oh, actually, it's not the code, the algorithm is wrong. Then the issue isn't your code, just what the solution you came up with in the very first place. Chat goes wild and brr. It could be worse, but I expected the chat to be quite active today. What should I do if even after solving so many questions, I couldn't perform well in rated contests? Did you spend 5 years practicing and you're not getting rating? Because if not, then I already answered. After solving so many questions, I couldn't perform well in rated contests. Performing well is relative. You're practicing with some kind of problems, right? If you can solve similarly difficult problems during a contest, then it's fine. This is what you should expect. So then switch to practicing harder problems. If you manage to solve problems of some difficulty in practice, but then you fail doing so in a contest, and this happens over and over again, it means that you don't perform well during a contest for some other reasons, not related to knowledge or skills. Maybe you just focus on performing well too much, and the stress makes you perform worse. And just, chill out. Again, I'm not a psychologist. So maybe you will get a better answer by Googling this question, but how to fight with stress. Maybe just don't focus on your rating here, on your performance. The fact that now you will lose rating, that you will get a worse place, will only make it easier for you to perform well in the next contest and to gain rating. That's maybe some piece of advice for a question, how not to feel stress. I don't know your exact situation. How do you approach creating a competitive programming problem? You will find multiple articles about it. Usually, the platform, when you propose a problem, the platform will just tell you, yeah, you write statement here, solution here, and we will give you feedback. That's not really enough. But there are some articles in the internet about creating problems as well. You can read those. Again, I don't know sources. I just remember they exist. You can use Google. Some advice is you can think about a real life problem. Let's say you're crossing a street and you're observing a green light and red light. It's something like, when I enter a street crossing, then how much time do I have before the green light turns red? So maybe then we can do this. Given the time of green light and red light, and just enter it at random moment, what's the probability that you will manage to cross the whole street while the green light is on? Then you would also need to specify the speed of this person, or also maybe width of the street. So you can create problems by thinking about a real life scenario, and sometimes it's just, from real life. You can walk through a street and that will be your idea. That's one possibility. And the other is to think about modifications of any algorithm. You think about, let's say, binary search. And you know that binary search works for an increasing sequence. And you wonder what will happen if this sequence is not really increasing. What if it's increasing and then decreasing? That's some possible modification. And indeed, this problem can still be solved. So now the sequence looks like a pyramid, goes up and then down. How do we find a value x there? And that is still well known. I didn't give you an example of something completely brand new, but the two main methods of coming up with a new problem are to take a real life thing and turn it into a problem, or modify an existing algorithm. Or maybe sometimes you will solve a problem during a contest in a different way. You will realize, oh, nobody else thought about that. And you will think more about your idea and maybe transform it into some other problem that you will use several months later. All that being said, you need to be very experienced to create good problems. If you started competitive programming a year ago, I wouldn't say that's enough. I created my first competitive programming problem around 5 years after I started competitive programming. I was already, I don't know if grandmaster level, but I was already high rated. Then I was able to come up with some problems. And yet, when now I look at those old problems, I remember that my first platform was Topcoder. Maybe because there is fewer problems there in the round, I'm not sure, because their Division 1 round is only 3 problems, so that's easier to come up with. But when I now look at my old problems, I look at my first problem, hard problem ever created, I think it's very boring and bad. I'm not proud of it. It's something geometry related, because I was good at maths and also geometry. And it was ugly. It was an ugly problem. If you're now only, with 2 years of experience, even if you now think it's a good problem, you will realize in a few years that it isn't. No. First, practice competitive programming, then try to come up with your own problems. We're getting close to the end of the stream. I can answer one more question. And that will be it for today, because also my throat will hurt if I talk so much. During any problem-solving stream, I can spend some time, thinking, not talking. And here it's just mainly me talking. Could you share your experience from Google CodeChef? Well, I guess the finals are the most interesting thing, but the finals have video coverage, I believe. Big competitions usually on YouTube later, the organizer uploads some videos about it. So for sure, that's the case for CodeChef Snackdown and for here, Google CodeChef. You can even see my screen being recorded, I believe. I'm not that sure about it. Anyway, going to any finals of a competition, it means a trip. That was to USA, maybe Canada. I'm not sure where was that Google CodeChef finals. And you fly there for free. You are booked in a very nice hotel, not always 5-star, but it's still very nice, and you don't pay anything. There is some sightseeing. You hang out with friends, because when I go to such finals, I know other finalists. We can play cards. We can go to, see a basketball game. And the finals itself, well, it's just a bit more stress than an online competition, because you see your opponents and the stakes are bigger. You can win something, actually. The winner gets from $10,000 to $20,000 nowadays in any finals of big international competition. What else can I tell you? Almost always there is somebody else going from Poland, so I don't fly alone. On average, there are around 3 people from Poland, I would say. Would be less in Topcoder Open because there are only 16 participants are there. But CodeChef and Hacker Cup are for 25 people, so around 3 people are from Poland, and I know all of them almost always. They are mostly from Warsaw. And generally, it was very pleasant to get second place. That was my biggest achievement. Should we wrap this up? I'm seeing the chat with admin of this stream. They're saying last 3 questions. Okay, then last 3 questions. What advantage does hardcore competitive programming give a programmer over other programmers? You can debug your code better, and that's mainly it. You can implement efficiently and without bugs. Maybe you're better in thinking about some kind of puzzles, anything math related. You won't use algorithms or data structures that much, but you will have an understanding of time complexity, of bottleneck. Like if the program is slow, then you need to find the bottleneck, that place that is done most times, or the most time-consuming query, and you understand that you need to optimize that instead of changing some other part. But mostly it is about debugging skills, I think. Just because Algo and DS, it doesn't come up that commonly anywhere in your real job. Next question, please. Why is my name not Erich 2? Sorry that I chose this nickname. Roadmap for learning Algo and DS basics. Ideal sequence of topics. No, I cannot describe that because there isn't any particular roadmap that you need to follow. Solve problems. When you don't understand something, learn it. That's enough. That's the whole roadmap there. And yeah, actually, I think maybe during some stream, I wrote down all the algorithm names and the techniques. I tried to create some map with arrows. Okay, this needs to be done before that. But, what's the point in that if you anyway can start from easy problems, there, learn things required for those, move on. That's really it. But, well, for any roadmap, if you open any course online, if you open any book, no, you don't even need to buy a course. If you even look at the plan for a course, teaching you for competitive programming, you will see the names of topics. Here you go. That's your roadmap. I would say start with binary search. If somebody told me they want to learn competitive programming, but they only know programming, I would teach them binary search first. We're getting closer to the end. What can be the best strategy for preparing for ICPC? Same as for anything else, practice. Well, practice ICPC problems, obviously, in a relatively less period of time. Then you will prepare worse. Sorry about that. Again, competitive programming isn't old enough that people know how to learn optimally. It's just that we know that you should practice, you should learn new things, but it's okay. It's good enough to learn things that you encounter in problems on your level, and that's really it. If you have 3 months or if you have 3 years, I would recommend you the same practicing methods. The only difference is maybe this. If you know Java or Python and you want to be good at competitive programming in a few years from now, I would suggest you to switch to C++ because it's better suited for competitive programming. If you want to see why, Google question, why is C++ better for competitive programming? You will find something. If you have 3 months to ICPC finals, then you shouldn't switch a language. Same for example, coding interviews. If you want to be good at something soon, use the tools you already know. All right. I think we're done with questions. And obviously, sorry, chat, that I cannot answer anything. Sorry, that I cannot answer everything, but there are so many questions every minute.
Kamil, on behalf of everybody present here, I would like to thank you for your insights today. I'm sure everyone is feeling inspired and has a far more better understanding of how to start on their journey to ace different competitive programming contests. So once again, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Everybody, you can subscribe to me everywhere. See ya.
Yeah, and I would also like to thank each one of you for being such a lovely audience. Guys, this was just day one. There's more to our Fiesta. If you wish to get access to more such fun and informative sessions, please subscribe to CodeChef channels and hit the bell so that you're the first to know when the content is released. And this Fiesta is being organized in association with CodeChef College chapters. For those who don't know about it, chapters are the programming clubs run and maintained by official chapter leaders and mentored by CodeChef. So if you wish to know more and get associated with us, please visit our website. I will see you all tomorrow with a new fun and learning packed session. Until then, good night and please take care.